Hello, distinguished audience. First of all, apologies. Bianca de Baats was going to come here as a State Secretary for Smart Cities, ICT and Digitization. And it's me, her advisor. So the next 15 minutes talk, I have divided it in three parts. First, look at the Brussels challenges, other challenges and complementary to the first presentation you saw. Then actually picking up the brains, looking at some examples that we've seen in some cities lately, and look how these can be applied in a smart city in Brussels. And then, well, smart city tomorrow, how the plans, what is up in Brussels. So first, what are the challenges in Brussels? Unfortunately, all the numbers I will present to you here now are double-digit. Not this one actually, it's demography. Demography, we know that the city is net increasing 30,000 people per year. So this has an impact on schooling, on housing, on all different elements. Actually, on housing, there is an important link there completely on the bottom right, the top right. You see that the number of available spaces and households are coming together. So there is a housing crunch coming up due to demography and people coming in the city. Road traffic, we talked about it, so I'm not going to pass that on. 2% increase per year, 35% extra travel time. Well, like the previous speaker, it's mentioned in time loss. School dropouts. So this is a percentage in Brussels of youth that doesn't finish with a secondary diploma. This means they actually start or they double, and then at the end they are 20, 21 years old, they're still in secondary school, and then they just stop. It's going down, but it's still around 20%, with the EU average way below. The unemployment rate has been going down, but it's still around 20%. So that's has always been a kind of a time bomb, of course. If youth cannot start being finding a right job in Brussels, it creates issues. But it's linked, of course, to the education part that we've seen before and other reasons. So, some challenges. Let's see if we ring the bell and then see what's next door. Well, next door, first, we talk about Berlin. We had a citation, Brussels reminds me of Berlin, where we actually see that some things are changing in Brussels. We have the right basis. There are 25% of Belgian ICT startups have been created in Brussels. ICT is an important part, and Brussels is 7th for scale-up and 9th for startup, according to recent numbers of UK Nesta. So some numbers, despite the ones that I just showed you before, are going in the right direction. Smart City today, actually the main focus is citizen engagement by and for, and increasingly more with the Brussels citizen. I think the next speaker will talk about the bottom-up approach. And what we do already now in Brussels is actually lay down the foundations, the basic infrastructure, fiber to the street, and actually fiber to the school, where we invest 1 million per year in 166 secondary schools. Wi-Fi in more than 80 public spaces, and smart government, meaning e-government, the e-loket and functions, so that your administration, both for companies and for citizens, is as low as possible. Data, there is a clear open data policy. I heard the two previous speakers talking about it, and so that's something that is on the agenda. So this year, we actually looked at some cities with 1 or 2 day missions to evaluate some elements. In Bordeaux, we saw this. It's already a little rundown, but we saw that actually the city of Bordeaux has invested in Wi-Fi and has let it known in places where there is Wi-Fi. In Brussels, as I mentioned, we have about 80 public places with Wi-Fi. What we learned from there is that we need a strong brand. So Wi-Fi.Brussels has been launched actually with 2 Fs, and Wi-Fi.Brussels. And related to the challenges, the deployment of the Wi-Fi hotspots in Brussels are going into Actiris. Actiris are the agencies for employment. We see that it's these hotspot points that are the most used in terms of traffic. Then in some public spaces, like Floris mentioned, we need to give back the space and etc. Wi-Fi in public spaces contributes to that. And some other selected areas. The deployment of Wi-Fi is a complement to private telecom players who have global reach, 3G, 4G, and hopefully 5G. So. In Rio de Janeiro, we visited Centro Integrado de Comando de Control, it's called, sorry for my Portuguese. The important element is the integrado, because on one command center that unfortunately, is being built next year as well in Brussels, we actually have this important element of integration. You see both, actually in Brazil you have all the cameras, thresholds, all different type of informations. What we saw there and what is interesting is that, for example, in this command center you have people from social services who are also there, who can follow up. If there is a police action and there is drugs taken, the social affairs can be there, integrated because traffic and weather conditions, all that are taken together. So quite important also for next year in Brussels. Actually, there is already a start with video protection. A few policy zones have been integrated or being integrated on one common platform with all the cameras. And the evolution is that the cameras of the public transport are being connected to this platform, and that all different platforms will be connected to it with multiple usage. For example, to lower the CO2 plan in Brussels, we will create by the end of next year a low emission zone in the whole region, and the cameras that are here being deployed will also be used to create a low emission zone with ANPR cameras. Last week, Barcelona, we had 1 day visit of, this is Espacio 22 in Barcelona. It's an urban area, and this urban area looks like this. It's actually, you still see the chimney from before, but behind you have a media park, you have a university, and all this in a great cohesion. And actually, plans in Brussels are, this is one of the development areas in Brussels. This is the media park in VRT-RTBF, so near Reyers, where this common approach is also being looked at on a regional level, with very specific projects with science parks, companies, startups, the larger companies, housing, even, and a concert hall. So yes, that's just a slide presenting indeed these different cohesions, for example, of this media park. Next, Barcelona is looking at what the citizen want in citizen engagement with a participation platform on very low, very on specific items, and that can be of one street or two streets or a district. Actually, in Brussels, the Brussels government helped this finance this kind of IoT element that came forward from citizens that wanted to look at the Parc Léopold, at the pont, Parc Léopold, in front of the European Parliament, and they actually, we helped them to start to finance this this little box, and for the rest, this organization creates with the neighbors a kind of a sensing network of the quality of this pond, and it's very interesting to see then people from the Science Museum talking about calibration of this with the local shop neighbor. Also, smartcity.brussels is the de facto portal for all the smart city initiatives in Brussels. Besides information from the different initiatives, there is always a poll happening with questioning the citizens in Brussels what type of projects they would want, what type of open data sets they're interested in, what Wi-Fi, and all the suggestions are being channeled and used and responded. In Barcelona, there was also the Smart City Expo, and we saw a project called Vincles, and Vincles is quite interesting because it's also linking their elderly people with their neighborhood. Most of the time when you talk about e-health, you see, yes, we put care for people in their house, etc. Here it's actually about the care of the network of these elderly people, facilitating contacts with one and another, and it's with new people, and it's normal when people become older, their network, either professional disappears or relatives can disappear, and so with projects like Vincles, Barcelona tries to do that. We are looking at that also for next year to start a pilot project into that. This year on digital inclusion, there were several projects in Brussels being done. Inclusion in some areas of Anderlecht, for example, with a project you see here, yes, where people learn to code. Le Wagon, we also put some scholarship for coding. So what's the future for Smart City is a connection of technology capacities for a service to resolve these challenges, and in a participatory approach. What are the building blocks? Building blocks, I mean, I heard talking about open data. Know that in Brussels, I mean, opendata-store.brussels is the first portal open with public data, but also with private data. So, and every time there are some more data sets being added. At this moment, there's only 100, but the PSI directive has just been implemented, so we hope to have some more, and a warm questioning to private partners. If you want to publish your data sets, you can also do it here, like, for example, Vilo from the CO is doing. So the future, where does it lead us? Well, what makes a city smart, actually? The Brussels Smart City Ambassador, Peter Ballon, mentioned it in his speech. It's problem-driven. So think about the challenges in the initial part of the presentation. It's about open data. It's about shared standards. Brussels is part of OASC, Open and Agile Smart Cities, where we look at other cities, so not to reinvent everything. The city as a platform. We have heard the paradigm of platform thinking. That's an important one. Top-down beats bottom-up. Xavier Daman is coming right after me to talk. We'll see about it, what he's going to talk about. And democratic. So the smart and digital strategy of the region, to conclude, focuses on areas that is linked to the European index, Digital Economy and Society Index. These are the different ones that are put together by Bianca de Baats, by Minister Gozouin of Economy, and by the Secretary Lanan of Innovation. In complementary to this, there are several main focuses in Brussels, like digital inclusion, European dimension, a governance, performance measurement, and of course a transversal approach, which is a quite difficult element because it's like ICT, it's horizontal, and you always have the tendency of vertical implementations, then have the difficulty to be implemented. Or some difficulties in administration. I think about some sensors that are installed for one purpose, and that might be interesting for another one. So to conclude, that's all nice, but don't forget Brussels is a creative city. I want to finish with this. This is Brussels architect Callebaut, who has drawn a mock-up of the City 2 moving to, I would say, after that, to CO2 instead of City 2. And with this nice imagination, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanguy.
Thank you.
We have a time for one question, perhaps. Anyone has a question for Tanguy? Anyone? No? Oh,
there's one.
Kai. Yes. Here's the microphone's coming.
I have a question regarding a conclusion from the speech about from Orange, and how you apply that sort of holistic approach to the city decision making, because what is the business model for the ICT sector to meet the city's decision makers?
Okay, what is the reason to link? Well, you need to think about what problem will you solve? What is the problem element? I think when you look at the Orange speech, the opening the data economy, the way the city, of course, is interested to, for example, know people movements and things like that, and there needs to be a way to be found how to give data from the public to the private and vice versa, because from a city perspective, we want to avoid that there is like again vendor lock-in and data lock-in, and that's a very important element to solve. If the city is not feeling comfortable with a data lock-in rate, where, for example, just take Uber, but it's just as an example. If there is no public transport and we have all self-driving cars from Uber in the near future, and the price suddenly surges, then a whole mobility from a city will become hostage of one company. And so this type of data governance, these are things that first need to be further sought out. But I think that private companies have the solution, have the approach, and really need to be a strong partner and thinking partner as well.
Great. Thanks. Did it answer your question somehow? Maybe you can take it further at the end. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tanguy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For
For you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.